You all know the famous series called Dexter. It's about a serial killer who works as a forensic blood splatter analyst for the Miami Metro Police Department. He's very liked by the audience because his goal is to only kill murderers or people who escape the law. In the series, Dexter is a really smart guy and he plans exactly who and when to kill his victims. Unlike the protagonist of our story today, Mark Twitchell. Who was a guy born on July 4th, 1979 in Edmond, Canada. His father works as a mechanic in a company in the area. He wasn't an only child, but he had a little sister. In his childhood, Mark was bullied for him being too weird or too nerdy or something like that. And he also used to lie a lot. And he was very good in lying also, and he used to lie in important occasions and not so important occasions. His passion since childhood was to produce movies, and he wanted to be a professional movie producer. And in order to fulfill that dream, when he grew up a bit and graduated from high school, he decided to move to the USA, where also there's been this girl, Megan, who he has met online, who also lives in the USA. So it was a win-win situation. It would improve his chances of becoming a film producer, and his online love was there. So yeah, he moves into the USA with his girlfriend, and soon after they decide to get married. After a while, Mark started using dating sites to catfish other men. Not only does Mark use the websites to catfish men, but he also uses these websites as a dating website to cheat on his wife. Sometimes he would just go to Megan and ask her if she ever thought about murdering someone. Of course, she would be very confused, and then he would say that he always thinks about murdering somebody. And he also tells her that the easiest target of a murder is a homeless guy because no one would care and no one would even notice. Now one day while he was using the dating site in the garage is a bit of a hidden place, his wife, Megan, walked in on him and saw the websites he was browsing, like he was using on. She rushed over to confront him because she thought he was cheating on her, obviously. And when she confronted him, he quickly shut her down as if it was nothing. And like he didn't really try to hide it, or like, you know, if someone is convicted and stuff and he knows he's guilty, he's like trying to hide it, the evidence and stuff. No, he never did such stuff. He like shut her down and said, yeah, it's just I was working with a guy from a newspaper and he said that I should investigate this website. And then she was still quite fishy about this thing because Mark, don't forget, he's known since his childhood for being a liar, and even his wife knows that. So she starts asking questions like the name of the newspaper, and without any kind of hesitation, without anything, he just gives her the name of the newspaper. But she still was like a bit sussed out, so she asked him about the guy he was working with, the name of him. He quickly told her a name of the guy he was working with on the newspaper. But there's still something fishy going around, so she asked him to call the guy, like to confirm with him. And he said, but I don't have his number, so I'm gonna email him, and until he gets back to me and such stuff, it's gonna be a couple days. And she said, okay, no problem. And in the meanwhile, Mark calls up somebody and convinces him, probably paid him money or something, convinces him to act like the guy from the newspaper. Then the day comes, he calls, and she believes him because this guy is pretending to be the guy from the newspaper. But that lie didn't really hold up that long because soon after she caught him again. This time she knew that it was a lie and she knew that he was cheating on her. After she caught him this time, he couldn't really lie about it. So she asks him for a divorce, and they do, and he moves back to Canada. Yeah, so after he moved to Canada, around 2008, he decided to create a fan-made Star Wars movie, and he put around $60,000 in, like, from his own money into this movie. But he figured that it wouldn't be enough and then stopped the project halfway. He didn't finish the fan-made movie. Soon after the failure with the movie, Mark married another woman, and her name is Jess. And in a very short notice, Jess got pregnant with Mark's baby, and it was a little girl. Even though a family started to form, which Mark didn't really want, he still wanted to become a famous film producer, like his childhood dream. But he didn't have enough money for it, because even his fan-made Star Wars movie he couldn't fund. So he decided to get a job. In the first job he got accepted into the job, but he wouldn't attend, he wouldn't go there. They fired him because of the lack of attendance. Soon after he got another job, but he forced himself to attend, like he did go there. After he got that job, he realized that with the salary of the job, it would take years to fund another movie, let alone an entire career of movies. So he went to Jess and told her that he wants to quit and that he wants to go to his families and the people around him and to collect donations to his next project. Jess said, no, you can't do that. We have a family, we have a little daughter, and you can't do that. And it's the responsible thing to do. But being the liar that he is, he decided to say, no, I don't care. So he quit his job and he used to pretend that he goes to his job. Like when his shift starts, he goes out the house, goes for a walk maybe, and then comes back when his job has ended. So Jess thinks he still has the job, but he doesn't. And he used the donation money, which he also went out and did. Like he went out, told the people, presented the idea to the people, to his parents, to his neighbors and stuff like that about the movie, and they gave him money. And he used that money to fund his lifestyle, like to fund his family, to fund expenses, his bills and stuff like that. Soon enough, Jess was complaining very often about this train that she keeps on hearing. They live in an alleyway which is right next to a train station, and it's very loud. They hear the train every time it passes. So they decide to move. And Mark, he doesn't have money. How should he move? How should he rent a house and stuff like that? He goes to the bank, and the bank doesn't loan to someone who is jobless, unemployed. So he goes to the bank employee and he tells them, here is a business card of my manager where I work, and just call him and verify that I have a job. So he took the phone, he went out the bank, and when the bank called the number he gave them, he answered. And he started saying, yeah, he's my employee, he's very good, he has a high paying salary and stuff like that. So the employee believed him and he got a loan. And with that loan, he moved out. After he moved out, he still got a little bit of the loan and a little bit of the donations from before. He decided right now that he's gonna start with his next project. And this project is very, very important. Basically, his next project is a horror crime movie. And in the movie, it's about a serial killer who's a movie producer. Like the character in the movie, the main character, the serial killer, is the movie producer. And so he lures his victims through a dating site, catfishes on, and he uses torture methods on them in order to experiment for his own movies. I know it's a bit confusing, but that's how it went. Basically, there's a movie producer. This is the plot of the movie. I'm not talking in real life. There's a movie producer. All right. He gets people, catfishes them, lures them into a garage, tortures them to see what fits best for his movies. Now you get it. I think that sounds a little bit familiar. Catfishing, dating, garage, movie producer. Yeah, it was all a cover-up by Mark in order to get the tools needed to perform these torture methods and stuff. Because if he gets all these torture tools and stuff, it would be very suspicious for the authorities. So it was all a cover-up to get it. But he still hired actors and stuff, so like he really went on with it. He still wanted to produce a movie. His intention by making this movie is to finally murder someone. Because at this time, between 2005 and 2008, he started becoming extremely obsessed with the series Dexter. What he did basically is he went on a dating site, he pretended to be a woman called Sheena, and he lured a guy called Gilles Tetrold or something like that. Gilles was like a very lonely man, so he was looking for a woman and he could easily be catfished and easily be manipulated. So yeah, they talk it out, he flirts with Sheena, which is Mark, and yeah, they build a connection, and soon they decide to go on a first date. Now Mark, which is Sheena, says, let's go to the movies, but Jill has to pick her up first. So he said, alright, no problem. And she sent him something very weird. She didn't send him an address like where you put it on Google Maps and it says right, left, stuff like that. But she gave him the directions. So she told him, you arrive there, you go left into the dark alleyway and stuff like that. And he asked her about it, but she used an excuse which like the house of her is in a dark alley and it's a garage that he has to enter and stuff like that, and that it isn't covered by Google Maps and stuff like that. And Jules, being the lonely man he is, he was very down bad for a woman, so he fell for it. Jill follows the instructions, goes there, goes into the garage, turns around looking for Sheena, the girl he wants to take on a date. And then he feels this shock from his back. like a taser shock, really, really hard. And from the shock, he fell and he turned around to see who is this guy who just shocked him. He sees a full on grown man with a pistol and a full on mask. Couldn't see his face. He was still shocked on the floor. He couldn't do anything. So he started like kicking around, trying to fight him and stuff like that. And his body is like full of adrenaline. So he started like crawling or like really going to the garage. There was still like a slight opening where he could slip through. Jill turns around, he's scared that Mark is gonna shoot, and he just slaps the gun out of his hand. And when the gun falls on the floor, Jill sees that the gun was a fake because it's made of plastic. He can hear the plastic in it. But still, Mark was like physically superior to Jill, and he started pinning him down and started beating him. But still, Jill going through the garage door, crawling through that little opening. Mark was trying to pull him, but Jill escaped. Running to the street, he found an older lady and an older guy. And he starts telling them everything that happens. Please help me, get me to somewhere and stuff. But they don't believe him because it was quite sketchy. And they know that there was a movie plot right there. Mark takes off the mask, goes from the front door and starts calming him down. Says, come here, you're my friend and whatever. And the couple, they say this is too sketchy. Whatever, it's a trap for us. They just go and they don't help him. After Jules escaped, the two couples called the police just to make sure, even though they were still skeptic about the whole thing. When the police arrived at Mark's garage, they didn't find anything unusual because Mark has cleaned up like the illegal stuff he had, but it was also a filming scene, you know, so they believed it was a movie or they thought it was some prank or whatever. They didn't find anything unusual and they just left. After Jules escaped, Mark knew that he wasn't going to call the police because he was very ashamed of what happened. It was very a stupid mistake, to be honest. He went into a dark alleyway and it was all very suspicious. And the flirting with Sheena, which is Mark, would be also used as evidence. So he was very ashamed of the thing, and since he wasn't really hurt and wasn't murdered, he just decided to stay silent. Mark is a guy who would report stuff on his personal blog. He would like basically document the crimes that he's gonna do, and he's gonna put it on the movie House of Cards. He's gonna say this is the plot and stuff. That's why the movie exactly describes him. You see the correlation? Mark, from his perspective, Dexter in his movie is a guy who wanted to kill other murderers and serial killers and stuff, but they were too hard for him. Because if they can escape the police, they can easily escape him. Therefore, Dexter in House of Cards, which is Mark's movie, decided that he's gonna start killing men, normal men, innocent men. But this time, they're not gonna be married men or any other kind of hard to kill men, but it's gonna be lonely, weak, short men, basically, because if they're lonely, meaning they're not married, the wives are not gonna notice if they're missing, and nobody else, in fact, maybe. If they're weak and short, then they can't resist the murder. Later, Mark wrote to Jills on the website where they used to chat and threatened him, basically. He said, if you tell the police and what, so even though he knew he's not going to tell the police, he just wanted to make sure. He said that I have your IP address and I am a serial killer and I am very professional. Even if you call the police, they won't find anything, which is true. After the couple called the police and stuff, Jules doesn't know about it, but yeah, it's true that they won't find anything. It's stuff like that, basically. He was threatening him not to call the police. Jules, when returning back to his life, as I told you, he didn't tell anyone because he was ashamed of it. After returning back to his normal life, his colleagues and friends noticed like punching and bruises on his body, and they asked him about it and they pressured him till he told them. He told them about everything, and then they convinced him to go to the police because this guy, if he does it once, he will do it again. So he went to the police, but the most disturbing thing about this all is that Mark has everything predicted in his so-called story on his blog, including the lie he's gonna tell to the police. So when the police comes, he's predicted everything in the lie and he lies to them and they believe him and they go. A week later, Mark decides to try again. So he creates a new account on this website, and soon after he meets a guy called Johnny Altinger. Johnny is 38 years old. He's like a very warm, wholesome, and just funny individual. And Mark was catfishing him under the girl called Jen. which is Mark, but Johnny doesn't know that, obviously. Johnny is a very social person. He is very active on social media, especially on Facebook. And like every step of his life gets documented to his friends. So wherever he goes, whatever happens, he tells his friends. So then after they start talking with each other more, they decide that they're gonna meet each other. And the same thing, Mark even said in the same garage where he did that with Jill's. And he says the same exact stuff, same directions, same instructions. And he also found it a bit suspicious, but he didn't care because he told his friends and he would be safe, he thought. So he goes there, he enters the garage, and he sees Mark there standing. It was very awkward at first between them. He asks Mark, "Where's Jen?" And Mark responds, "Jen is not here, she's gonna be back in a couple of hours." So Mark hops in the car, goes back home, and then Jen texts him, "You can come now." He drives back to her, and Johnny is never to be seen again. A couple days later, his friends start to get worried, and then suddenly they get a message from Johnny. And Johnny says that, "I found the love of my life and I'm gonna fly to Costa Rica with her." Now, this is very, very weird because Johnny would never do something like that. He would never leave his responsibilities. He's 40 years old, so he's like, he wouldn't do something like that. And it wasn't his style of typing. He wouldn't talk like that. They decide to go to the police. They say that he's probably kidnapped or being forced to do something. Police can't do anything because there isn't enough evidence for it. I took off my headset, I'm sorry, I had it on, I forgot. After the police rejected to investigate the case, the friends went into Johnny's house, broke in through a window, and they started like looking around, but they saw everything. Like if you went into there, you wouldn't think that this guy is traveling. His clothes were there, like his razor, everything was there. And then they found, like they opened the cupboard and they found his passport. So they would go to the police once again, and the police this time need to investigate. The friends of Johnny tell them that the last where he was seen was Mark's garage, and Johnny had a red Mazda. So the police go there. One of the officers remembers that a couple of weeks ago, there has been a report from this garage from a guy, Julius, and that it was in the same garage, also with Mark, and also very weirdly, same kind of story. They bring down Julius and he tells them his story, and the lead detective on this case is very happy because he has a lead on this. So he goes to questioning with Mark. At first, the first time he questioned him, before Julius was brought in, he was very convinced that Mark was innocent, because you gotta remember that Mark always plans his lies. Like he knows what he's gonna say, and it works because he studied. He's a smart guy, he's a psychopath. They always study. He had his lie prepared, no problem. The second time he was questioned after Gillies was brought in, because when Gillies was brought in, he was 100% the first suspect. Because remember when he took off the mask and started calling Gillies to come back into his home as if he was his friend, so that was very suspicious. They said, "We found a red Mazda." Previously, Johnny owned a red Mazda, which is the same exact model. In the first interview with the detective, when he was asked about it, he said he didn't know where it was. On the second interview, when they said we found a red Mazda with you, he said that he just bought it. But it was such an unpopular and specific model and specific color that he couldn't have just bought it. The detective wasn't having it, so he knew 100,000% that Mark in front of him is the killer, but now he needs evidence. They acquired a search warrant of his garage, and then they searched and they found torture equipment, and they found all of this weird stuff. Mark showed them the script saying, "This is my movie, and look at that, the people I hired and stuff, this is a movie and stuff, that's why." But they didn't buy it. So they checked his computer and they saw his blog where he written everything down about what he's gonna do and how he's gonna do it, including the lies he's gonna tell to the detectives. And he doesn't even try to hide it. He had it in his bin, like he tried to delete it. In that blog, we sadly find out what he did to Johnny, which is horrible, horrible. Let's rewind back to when Mark told Johnny to go back because Jen wasn't here. After that, Johnny got a text from Jen saying, "I am home, come." And she also told him not to worry about the garage because it was very creepy and stuff like that. It was just a filming set, and he believed it. No problem. He went there, he said hello to Mark, and he got closer, like through the garage. He got closer to Mark, and Mark took out a metal rod and hit him on his head. Now, according to the words of Mark, he expected Johnny just to fall down, but he hit him, and he stood there. Now he hit him multiple times on his head until he fell down, and Johnny started crying and begging and saying, please, I'll give you money, please leave me alone and stuff like that. He's an old man, like, come on. After that, when he started beating him, hitting him until Johnny was unconscious, he took Johnny's body and he placed it on like an elevated platform out of metal, and then he started cutting his body in pieces, cutting his limbs, cutting his hands, his feet. Very disturbing stuff. And he was enjoying it. And he even said that the mistake he made was that he didn't cover everything in plastic bags, because when he was cutting, the blood would squirt everywhere on the walls and stuff, and he didn't expect that. After he was done with cutting up Johnny, he placed him in a barrel, in a metal barrel where you like store oil maybe for the cars. It was perfect for his movie scene. He took his car, placed the barrel with the body parts in the trunk, and threw it somewhere, just like disposed of it. Couple days later, he went to Johnny's apartment, looked for a computer where Johnny was still logged in, and texted Johnny's friends that he's gonna go to Costa Rica and stuff like that. After the police searched his computer and found this confession and all that, he tried to explain, oh, this is about the movie and stuff, but they wouldn't buy it because it described one-to-one how the body looked and everything perfectly. So he got arrested, and he was eventually sentenced to life in prison without parole, which is well deserved, obviously. It is probably very crazy because he knew what he was doing was wrong. He still did it because he even said, I know I'm a psychopath. I know I don't feel empathy or I don't have emotions. That's what he said. And he was diagnosed as a psychopath, which is like obviously not really surprising. So yeah, that was the story of the stupid Dexter, who would confess to his own crimes on his computer. And yeah, thank you guys for watching my first video.